The State of the Nation address focuses on the current political and socio-economic state of the nation and is expected to be delivered by President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday. For more on this, I'm joined by Dr. Ferdie Schneider. He's the National Head of Tax and a tax partner at BDO. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. What are we expecting come Thursday from the President?
Well, let's talk tax for a moment. I think we can expect very little on the tax front. I think the President will tread carefully because we've got the general elections coming this year. So I think there's also very little space really to increase taxes further on the personal side beyond the 45%. I think our corporate tax burden is already at a point where it's not very comparative internationally, and indirect tax is hampered, of course, by our unequal distribution of income in South Africa. So I think it's got his hands tied behind his back at the moment where it comes to tax and trying to actually cut on expenditure and pay for the expenditure that need to remain.
But after a State of the Nation, of course, there's going to be the budget speech, and economists analysts are saying that in an election year, especially with tax, the finance minister can't make any big announcements around increases to personal tax, but on the other hand, there does need to be extra money found from somewhere, and somehow South Africans are going to get taxed.
That is so, but I do think they're hamstrung at the moment. I think the Minister Titu Mboweni has really got his job cut out for him. If you look at a marginal rate of 45% at over 1.5 per annum, that is very, very difficult. So they will actually have to focus seriously, I believe, on cutting the expenditure of the SOEs, the state-owned enterprises, and focus on the expenditure side. So I would think that they would try to cut the gap through increasing revenue marginally, but substantially decreasing expenditure. That's the only way to go, in my view.
One of the issues around tax and tax collection is that there's been a decrease in the last few years. Some people have attributed it to a tax morality problem. Helen Zille has come out and said that if certain things don't happen, there should be a tax revolt. What's your thoughts on that?
Tax morality, I think, as a matter of course, would have dropped down. I've not done any research on that, but tax morality is very much what the taxpayer pays and expects in return. So, in theory, there would definitely have been a decline. Whether, in fact, it's borne out by studies, I can't tell you. I would imagine it would. A tax revolt, I'm not convinced that we can do a tax revolt. It's impractical. There's three main avenues that you can actually revolt if you're a aggrieved taxpayer. That's corporate income tax, it's VAT, and it's PAYE or personal income tax. Now, the moment you start revolting as a paying taxpayer, SARS is onto your case. It's a criminal offence if you don't pay your dues. So they can say they want to revolt, but can they really revolt? I doubt it.
Okay. Let's talk about our tax base. That comes up quite a lot. Give us a sense of who that is and how that really works.
Well, I think the relative focus on direct taxation like corporate income tax and personal income tax, that in itself, those two comparatively have probably shifted way towards personal income tax. So I think our personal income tax payers, which is a handful, I think the majority of our revenue is actually deduced or extracted from about 100,000 taxpayers. The top 80-20 principle almost, whereas the reliance on corporate income tax has steadily declined. And I think partly so because multinational corporations actually become more and more mobile. We have placed heavy reliance, let's say about a third, give or take, on indirect taxes, specifically VAT, much less so on the customs side. But then we sit with the unequal distribution of income in South Africa. And we almost saw a revolt in your terms on the 1st of April last year when we pushed it up to 15%. But it's there. I would rather, I've been in the minister's shoes and I don't want to wear those shoes. I think they will definitely cause me stress. But I would rather have focused on the zero rating basket on the VAT side and the tax expenditures on the corporate income tax side to gain money and actually to redirect that in a very formed informed and focused manner.
One of the perceptions when this conversation comes about who pays our tax and what makes our country work is that people who are on the lower end of the spectrum, people who are very poor, who don't pay income tax, don't contribute and don't pay tax at all.
Well, it's partly so and partly not. It depends on what side of the tax spectrum you look at. If you look at direct taxes, the majority of the lower income people do not pay direct taxes like personal income tax. Indirectly, it would probably filter down into the economy, but that's an indirect consequence. But they do pay VAT. They pay 15% on most things that they actually buy. But if you look at the 5 or 6 zero-rated items that they've now suggested should come in, I'm not convinced that that's going to bring relief to the poor. I think there must be other mechanisms explored.
Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Ferdie Schneider, who is the National Head of Tax at BDO, joining me in studio there.